everyone. Welcome back to another Waterstones virtual school event. Today we are very lucky to have Tom Vaughan talking to us. He's the author of our current children's book of the month, Hercules, the Diary of a Sort of Hero. This incredibly hilarious book follows the adventures and misadventures of Hercules Braver as he starts secondary school and learns something strange about himself. But you'll hear more about that from Tom in a moment. Tom will be talking about writing his new book, Hercules, and answering your questions. I've got a list of pre-submitted questions, so thank you for everyone for sending them in. But if any questions occur to you while Tom's giving his presentation, we'll have lots of time at the end, so please do pop them in the Q&A box or in the chat box. This session is being recorded, so don't worry if you miss anything. You'll be emailed a link so you can view it again in a couple of days. And we'd love to see any pictures of you enjoying the event. Please use the hashtag Waterstones virtual event and tag us at Waterstones so we can see and see you all having a really good time. So that's it for me for now. Without further ado, Tom, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I am Tom Vaughan, author of Hercules, Diary of a Sort of Hero. Here we go, I'm back online. Author of Hercules, Diary of a Sort of Hero, which is currently Waterstones Children's Book of the Month. I'm going to tell you all about how and why I wrote Hercules. I'm going to tell you all about my love of Greek myth and how my love of Greek myth has inspired this book. We're going to have a little Greek myth quiz, which is what some of these things behind me are for. And then I'm going to tell you one of my favorite Greek myths and why I love it so much. So, without much ado, I am going to share my presentation. Here we go. Give me 2 seconds just to pop this up. Here we go. Hercules, Diary of a Sort of Hero. So Hercules is the third book that I have written. I've written Bimboy, which is a story of an accidental superhero. I've written A Gangster Stole My Trunks, which is a murder mystery with crazy villains set on board a cruise liner. And I have written Hercules, Diary of a Sort of Hero, which came out just 10 days ago. As well as I've just finished writing the second book in the Hercules series, which is coming out in September 2024, and we're going to be revealing the cover for that later this month. So this is Hercules. This is a story of Hercules, of 11-year-old Hercules Braver, who as he starts secondary school is determined to live up to his impressive name. He wants to be strong and tanned and popular like a Greek hero, not weak and pale and unpopular like a Greek yogurt. But as he starts secondary school, his plans spectacularly unravel. And in order to save his plummeting reputation, he is left saddled with a set of impossible tasks. So, when his charming, impressive birth dad Zoe turns up after years of living in Greece, Hercules thinks all of his problems are solved. But Zoe is more mysterious and, in fact, devious than Hercules first realizes. In fact, with his godlike strength and awe-inspiring powers, could Zoe even be the real Zeus from Greek myth? And will his arrival help Hercules learn what it means to be a real hero? I had so much fun reading you this book. It is all written, as the name suggests, in diary format, and it's got all these brilliant illustrations by David O'Connell. It's a really easy read for anyone from year 3 upwards. Year 2, if you're a good reader. Even my son's in year 3, he wolfed it down in about 4 days. But then again, if you like Percy Jackson, you know, if you're a bit older, still got so much Greek myth that hopefully you will love it as well. I am going to, there we go. There's some pictures of it in Waterstones windows, in Waterstones at the moment. I'm going to read you the first chapter from Hercules, and I'm going to introduce you to some of the illustrations as well. So here we go, chapter 1. It's not called chapter 1 though, it's called Friday, the 1st of September. Hello, my name is Hercules Braver, and this is my diary, which is going to document my start of secondary school. Before we go any further, I should get the elephant out of the room. Yes, my name really is Hercules. And yes, I know that I'm named after a super strong, super cool Greek hero. Most people would hate having a name like Hercules, but I love it. Me and the other Hercules have loads in common. I know this thanks to my best friend, Pav. He knows everything there is to know about Greek gods and heroes and is always banging on about them. Pav's dad is professor of something or other at the University of something or other and loves Greek myths. I think it's why Pav is always so on edge, because every night he's hearing bedtime stories of people being punished for all eternity. The Greek gods can be pretty harsh. For example, this one king chopped down the wrong tree to make a dining table. So, to punish him, the gods made him really, really hungry. So hungry that he ate himself. If that had happened to me, I'd have just gone to an all-you-can-eat buffet. My other best friend, Hattie, says they can't throw you out, no matter how many times you go back for more. Pav loves to tell me all about the Greek gods and heroes and draw family trees of them just for me. It's pretty complicated, and most of the time I just pretend to listen. I'm only really interested in Hercules, as he is the cool one. Like I said, we have loads in common. Number one, we're both awesome. For example, other Hercules saved the world from these angry giants who wanted to kill the gods and rule over humankind. While recently, I saved an old person who'd been run over by a car. It was only a remote control car, but she was still very grateful. Number two, we're both famous. Hercules was the biggest celebrity in ancient Greece, and I've been on TV. I was on the local news for getting stuck inside a vending machine. People on the street still recognize me because of it. Number three, me and the other Hercules both have three parents. Hercules had his birth dad, Zeus, aka the king of the gods, his birth mum, Alchemy, and his stepdad, Amphitryon. I've got my mum, my birth dad, who I've never met, who lives in Greece, and my stepdad, Ken, who brought me up. However, Ken and Zeus couldn't be more different. Ken is a physics teacher and likes tandem bikes, fishing, and inventing weird things, which is about as far away as you can get from a lightning bolt throwing, thunderstorm riding king of the gods like Zeus. Ken works as a teacher at my new school where I'm starting next week. The first day of secondary school is without question the most important moment in your life. It's when reputations are made, when cool guys are forged and losers decided on. A kid at a bus stop once told me that. The thing is, I'm worried that Ken is going to cramp my cool's. But I've got big plans for how to make an impression on my first day. Everyone is going to remember the name Hercules Braver. Mark my words. That was Friday the 1st of September from Hercules' Diary of a Sort of Hero. I am going to introduce you to some of the characters who you just briefly met and some of the characters who you haven't yet met in that book. So, Hercules, meet the characters. There is the man himself, Hercules Braver, a kid with Olympic levels of self-confidence, but tragic levels of self-perception. Hercules wants one simple thing as he starts secondary school. He wants to make hundreds of new friends, maybe even thousands, perhaps even millions. But Hercules' delusions are kept as grounded as possible by his best friend, Pav, who is quite grumpy but very smart, loves Greek myth, and is always rolling his eyes at Hercules' deluded plans of greatness. And then there is Hattie, his other best friend, an eccentric wild card. She's very loving, but she's eccentric, she's impulsive. She indulges Hercules and his crazy ideas. Then, and she's got a pet rock called Rocky 3. Then at home, there is Ken, who is a very, very kind man, but also quite an uncool man as well. He likes fishing and inventing things and science. Then there's Mum, who just wants Hercules to stop getting in trouble. But if there's one thing that Hercules is really good at, it is getting in trouble. And as soon as he starts secondary school, he gets himself in trouble. Firstly, with Mr. Geras, the headmaster. He loses Mr. Geras's cat on the first day of school. Mr. Geras hasn't yet found out, but if he does find out it's Hercules, he will be livid. And then secondly, there's a school bully, Malky, who Hercules first manages to accidentally give a paper cut to, giving him a business card, and then secondly, accidentally karate chops. Malky becomes immediately Hercules' sworn enemy. And both those characters help Hercules end up with his set of impossible tasks. So, when this guy turns up a few chapters in, Hercules thinks all of his problems are solved. This is Zuri, his birth dad, who's been living in Greece all his life, that Hercules has never met. He's charming, strong, impressive. Everyone loves him. Is he Hercules' answer to being the cool, popular guy he wants to be? Or does Zuri have some secrets of his own? Could he, in fact, be the real Zeus from Greek myth? Now, I love Greek myth. I put so much Greek myth into this book. It's got gods, maybe. It's got myth-inspired events. It's got Pav talking a lot about Greek myth, but it's also got the first three labours of Hercules, inspired by which inspire Hercules' own impossible tasks. So in mythology, the other Hercules ends up saddled with a set of impossible tasks in order to clear his name. First, he has to slay the Nemean lion. Then he has to slay the Lernaean hydra. And then he has to capture the Ceryneian hide. Those are his first three of his 12 labours. I wanted to give Hercules, my Hercules, his own labours inspired by those. So he has to find Mr. Geras's lost cat. Then, in order to become the popular, cool legend that he wants to be, Hercules vows to catch the legendary school pond monster that supposedly lives in a filthy pond out in the school playing field. And finally, he has to get hold of a copy of Golden Deer Quest 2, a new computer game that isn't even released yet. He has to do that in order to placate Malky, the school bully. Now, like I say, I took so much inspiration from Greek myth. I love Greek myth. I want to see how much you guys know and love about Greek myth, because we are going to have a Greek myth, Greek god quiz. So here are the rules. I'm going to go through all 12 Greek gods on screen. You guys are going to guess, see if you can answer who they are. 1 point if a pupil guesses, half a point if no pupils know who it is and a teacher comes in and guesses. I want you to score yourselves as you go along, and then you can put in the chat at the end how many you got. If anyone got 12 out of 12, I'd love to hear it. I've been going around schools with this, and there have been some incredible schools, 11, 12 out of 12. Also, when I'm going around schools, normally I get the kids up, we get dressed up as the Greek gods. But instead, because it's just me, I'm going to have 12 Janet Jackson-esque costume changes really quickly in between each of the Greek gods as we go through them, all right? So bear with me. If everyone's ready, we're going to go for the first Greek god. Here we go. This is him. All right. And I'm going to give you a clue on each one. I am the king of the gods. Can't give you a bigger clue than that. This is the easy one. I'm the king of the gods. You don't need to put it in the chat, guys. Just score yourselves. It is Zeus. Yeah. But write it down. Score yourselves. Tell me at the end. Okay. So next up, my next costume change. Hang on, I've got a crown here that won't fit on my head. I am the queen of, and the queen of the Greek gods. Put your answers down on a piece of paper. Score yourselves, guys. And answers in, please. It is Hera. Okay, next up. I am the god of rivers and oceans. I have a trident that has been manhandled by schools all across the country and is now held together by sellotape. I'm the god of rivers and oceans. Put your answers down on a piece of paper. The third Greek god is, of course, Poseidon. Next up, this guy gets a bad rap in Greek mythology. Well, not in Greek mythology. He gets a bad rap these days, but in Greek mythology, he was all right. I am the god of the underworld. I think a black beard quite suits me, actually. I am the god of the underworld. Answers down. We're on to our next god. That, of course, was Hades. Okay, got some Hades beard in my mouth. Next god is this guy. I am the god of war. I am also holding some items from my son's fancy dress cabinet, who was dressing up as the god of war, I imagine, one time. I am the god of war. Answers down, guys. 1 point if your pupil gets it. I imagine a pupil is going to get this. Half a point if you need to show it to the teacher. The god of war is going offline because he was Ares. Okay, next up. I am the god of the hunt. The god of the hunt and of nature as well. By the way, all through these, if you're answering in Roman names, I should have said that. If you're answering in Roman names, I will also accept that. So we had Jupiter, Juno, Neptune. I forgot who other ones were. Pluto for Hades. Okay, sorry, the god of the hunt is, of course, Artemis or Diana in Greek mythology, Roman mythology. Next up, the god of music and healing. The god of music and healing. Also a gladiator, if anyone needs a clue. He is, answers in, he is, of course, Apollo. Next up. Oh, this one. I shouldn't really have to wear anything for this one, just with my natural good looks, but the god of beauty. Who is the god of beauty? Answers on your piece of paper. It is, of course, Aphrodite. Next up. Oh, I've got some shoes for this guy. I've got some winged shoes for this guy, but I can't actually show them to you or put them on because obviously my feet are down there. But this is, I am the messenger god. Currently, I am the messenger god. The messenger god. Pop your answers down for the messenger god. It is, of course, Hermes. Next up. Ooh. Aha! Another gladiator. I am the god of logic and wisdom. The god of logic and wisdom. Also a gladiator. If anyone wants to put in the chat what the gladiators get wrong about this gladiator, you're welcome to. The god of logic and wisdom is Athena, of course. 2 more gods to go. This is where things get hard, guys. This is where we're at the business end. When people fall down, it is on this next god. It's a hard one. A couple of clues here for you early on. I am the god of agriculture and the harvest. The god of agriculture and the harvest. This is a hard one. People sometimes struggle with it. I'll give you a little bit longer for this one. Roman or Greek names for the god of agriculture and the harvest. It is none other than Demeter, or Ceres in Roman. Okay, last one for those wanting to get 12 out of 12. Finally, maybe my favorite god, or one of my favorite gods. Here's your first clue. Grapes in a wine glass. I am the god of wine and pleasure. The god of wine and pleasure's goblet has also been broken on the road as well by one of the gods who I recruited to be Dionysus. Oh, well, I shouldn't give you the name, to be this person. It is, of course, Dionysus. No, hang on, Dionysus. Okay, so if you've got a chat, he's 12 out of someone got 12. Darren Smith got 12 out of 12. We've had 6 from Sarah Barker, 11 from Rowan Class, 11 out of 12 from Lulu Brown, 6.5. Year 5 at Middlefield got 12, 12 out of 12 at Phoenix Star St Peter Academy, 5 from Bristol, 9 for Year 5 at St Mary's, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, Middleston Primary, out of 12 for U Class, 9.5, Christensen Primary, 10, 7 from Menstrie, 7, 7, 9, 5, 12 from Abernatman, 12 from Truro High School, and now they're Greek gods and 12. Westland's got 12, 11 out of 12 for Claysmore. Right, I cut 4 Blunders Blast. Every one of these is a great effort. 12 out of 12 for Year 5 Harnham. 8. I can't keep reading these out because I want to share a Greek myth with you. We've only got a few. We've got 6 more minutes. Marley Class 10. Guys, I'm always blown away by how much you kids know about Greek myth. It absolutely blows my mind. Most answers in Menstrie came from Fortnite. Great. However you want to learn about your Greek myth, it's fine by me. But I'm closing the chat now. It always blows me away how much you kids know about Greek myth. I loved Greek myth when I was growing up. You guys might know some great Greek myths. You might be a fan of Jason and the Argonauts. You might be a fan of the myth of Medusa. You might be a fan of the myth of the Odyssey or the Battle of Troy or Orpheus's journey into the underworld. Or one of my favorite Greek myths, Icarus and Daedalus. Icarus, who makes wings out of feathers and wax and flies too close to the sun. Did I say the Minotaur? You might be the fan of the Minotaur. There's so many brilliant Greek myths that have lasted thousands and thousands of years because they're so great. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite Greek myths, and I'm going to tell you it's a lesser known Greek myth. It's a niche Greek myth. I'll tell it to you, and I'll tell you at the end why I love it so much. So this is the myth of Semele. So once upon a time, a beautiful young mortal woman called Semele was bathing in a lake. And Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, the naughty, slightly morally weak king of the Greek gods, was spying on her. Zeus did a lot of naughty stuff, bad stuff in Greek mythology. This is another example of it. He was spying on Semele from a bush. And as he was spying on Semele, Cupid, or Eros in Greek mythology, shot him in the buttocks with a love arrow. And when you get shot in the buttocks with a love arrow, you fall immediately in love with the person you were looking at. And Zeus fell immediately in love with Semele. Because he was a king of the Greek gods and he was strong and powerful and charming and handsome, Semele fell immediately back in love with him. But of course, there was one person who wasn't very happy about that, Hera. Zeus had form in Greek mythology for running off, seducing lesser beautiful gods and goddesses, mortals, beautiful mortal ladies. And this is just another example of him running off with a beautiful woman who he'd seen. And Hera, rightly so, was furious with him. And so she vowed to play a trick to get her own back on Zeus. She disguised herself as an old woman. And she went up to Semele and went, "Did you know you're going out with the king of the Greek gods?" Semele had seen some of her boyfriend's magic, but she didn't for a second think he was the king of the Greek gods. She thought maybe he was a lesser god, but not the king of the Greek gods, not Zeus, the ruler of the cosmos. She said, "I don't believe you. There's no way I'm going out with Zeus." So the old lady, Hera, said, "Well, next time you see him, why don't you ask himself to reveal himself in his true form?" So Semele resolved that the next time she'd see Zeus, her boyfriend, she would ask him to reveal himself in his true form. Next time they met up, she said, "Zooey, may you grant me a wish?" And he said, "I swear on the river Styx to grant you your wish, whatever wish you want." Now, when a Greek god swore on the river Styx, it was the most serious oath they could swear on. If they broke it, they had to spend 7 years in Tartarus, the underworld. They'd lose their god status. They'd leave Mount Olympus and go into Tartarus. It was a very, very, very serious oath. Semele said, "I want you to reveal yourself in your true form." Zeus was shocked. He knew that his true form was an electricity-filled, lightning bolt-throwing thunderstorm, so powerful, so intense, no mortal could gaze on it without being burnt to a crisp. But he also knew that he'd sworn on the river Styx that he would reveal himself in his true form, that he'd grant her this wish. He knew as well he'd been tricked by Hera. He knew he had no choice. Now, spoiler alert, a lot of Greek myths don't have happy endings. And this one is another Greek myth that doesn't have a happy ending because Zeus revealed himself in his true form like he swore he would. And poor Semele got burnt to a crisp. Now, even though it's got a sad ending, like a lot of Greek myths do, I tell you why I love it so much, because it tells you everything you need to know about the Greek gods. Zeus was majestic and awe-inspiring. He was a thunderstorm in real life. He was the ruler of the cosmos, king of the universe. He was the most mighty being in the whole of history. But also, he was morally weak. He spied on young girls. He ran around behind his wife's back. Hera was the queen of the cosmos, the queen of the universe. She could turn herself into anything she wanted to be. She could disguise as an old lady. She could do whatever she wanted. But also she was spiteful and vengeful. Yes, she got her own back on Zeus, tricked Zeus, rightly so, but also she punished poor Semele, who'd done nothing wrong. So these Greek gods, they had two sides of them. They weren't just the majestic, awe-inspiring, incredible X-Men-like beings. They were also complicated and flawed and petty and spiteful and vengeful and cruel and mean. And to the ancient Greeks, they helped make sense of their world. They helped make sense of a world, which it is. At times, the world is beautiful and majestic and awe-inspiring. But at times, life can be cruel and mean and fickle as well. And that's why these Greek myths have stayed with me my whole life. I read them as a kid, and they're still with me now. I still take different things from them every time I read all these Greek myths. I've taken inspiration all my life from Greek myths, for whatever you guys love reading about. Oh, here's a picture of Semele that I just love because she's staring resolvedly into the face of Zeus and Hera as she's being burnt to a crisp, livid that she's been caught up in the games of the gods. Whatever you guys take inspiration from, whether it's Harry Potter or history or Star Wars or football or Pokemon or pets, whatever you love reading about, the key is you just need to read about it. whatever it is, don't let anyone tell you what's wrong and what's right, which story is good and which story is bad. Whatever you want to read, whatever inspiration you want to take from wherever you want to take it, you should do. And if you want to write your own stories about it, like I have about Hercules, go for it. There's nothing wrong with borrowing stories like I have and retelling them. And that's exactly what I've done for Hercules, and I had the best time doing it. Guys, thank you so much for listening. I'm blown away by all your Greek god knowledge. We're going to hand over to a Q&A, and you can ask me anything you want, whether it's about Greek myth or whether it's about being an author or whether it's about Hercules. Whatever you want, I'd love to answer your questions.
Hello. Thank you for that
Hi, Rhiannon.
presentation. I don't think I've ever seen anyone wear so many costumes in so short a time.
It is, yeah, no, I don't think I've ever worn so many costumes in so short time.
So I have a nice list of pre-submitted questions, but please feel free to put some more questions in the chat, everyone, and we'll try and get to as many as we can. So I think the first question I'm going to ask is from, and I'm really sorry in advance if I pronounce any of these names wrong, Blandule Primary, who ask, what book inspired you to become an author?
Well, great question. So when I was about 11, I read a book, 11 or 12, probably about year 7 or year 8. I read a book called The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, which teachers might remember, which was just the funniest book I'd ever read. It's story of a boy who is becoming a teenager and thinks he is cleverer than it. But he's got a lot of the same DNA as Hercules, thinks he's a lot cleverer than he actually is, Adrian Mole. And it's his diary as he navigates tricky years 7 and 8 and 9. Well, a lot of stuff happens off screen with his off sort of page with his parents as they get divorced, and was just the funniest book I'd ever read. And I read it again as an adult, and it's still the funniest book I've ever read. And so it inspired me to be an author.
I think if Hercules and Adrian ever met, it would be very calamitous.
A great meetup.
So a great question here from Noxland Primary, who asks, how do you grab the attention of the reader and make them want to read more?
What a great story. Action. You've got to start with action. You've got to start off with things. Sometimes when you start a book, you want to explain and do a lot of backstory. You've got to throw a reader into a bit of action. So it's got to start off in a very active way. As quickly as possible, I wanted Hercules to get to secondary school and troubles to start happening to him. A moment of change is always a good place to start. So a great place, again, Hercules is moving from primary school to secondary school. A big moment of change is always a great moment to start a story. And then action. Throw the reader straight into action as quickly as possible. You can always put backstory in at a later date, a later point of the page.
Excellent. Hunting Tower CP Academy asks, do you enjoy any other mythology, e.g. Norse/Viking?
Yeah, I love Norse/Viking. I find it a lot sort of darker almost. There's a lot more fun in Greek mythology. But yeah, I love Norse, find it, amazing and fascinating. And I studied it for a fair bit as well for as a kid.
Excellent. Yeah, lots of chaos there as well. We've had quite a few questions coming through about the kind of process of being an author. So Liam from Robert Kett asks, what do you have to do to be an author?
Well, you've got to sit in your pajamas a lot and write. And that's one of the big things. Also, you've got to travel into your imagination. Imagine what it's like when you're in reception and you're in year 1 and you used to go out into break time and used to make believe games and immerse yourself in those worlds for half an hour until the bell went. That's what you do all day as an author. You've got to make believe worlds in your head, and you've got to spend time with them. And it is as fun doing that all day as it was when you're in reception doing it in the playground.
Excellent. And then a specific question from Emily Smith about the illustrations in this book, who asked, did you draw the illustrations in this book?
No, these were all done by David O'Connell, who has illustrated things like the Grumpiest Unicorn series. He's got loads of books. He's brilliant. I would send him little descriptions of the jokes I wanted, and then he would get it back, like this one here of Hercules when he's inside the vending machine. I would say, Hercules inside the vending machine. He looks like his eyes are sweating and his legs are sweating as well, and he's crying. And then I'd get them back and I'd see them, and it was like the sort of punchline of my joke had landed,
Excellent. Then a funny question from Marley class who asks, who is your least favorite Greek god and why?
My least favorite Greek god, I think it's probably out of all of them, Zeus. I always back the underdog. Zeus isn't the underdog. He's got tons of power. He takes advantage of all of that power. He's almost, he's sort of power hungry. So I always back the underdog. So, it's like I don't like Man City. I like the guy. I like the little guy. I like the guy who's got it all stacked against him. So Zeus is my least favorite Greek god.
Yeah, he's got it too easy, really.
Yeah, too easy.
We've had quite a lot of questions, so I don't have a specific name, but asking how long it took to write the book.
It took me. I wrote it twice. I read it once and it was terrible. It's been in my head for years, the voice of Hercules. I was trying to get it out and put it into a story, and I found it harder than I thought I would. So I wrote it once, and I think that took about 10 weeks. And I put it in a drawer, which is something you should do with stories. You put them in a drawer, and then you come back to them, and you then the time it's been in the drawer helps you see all the problems with it. And I wrote it again, and that probably took about 10 weeks as well. So about 20 weeks of actual writing, I think.
Fun. Then a question from Harnham Junior School who asks, which of your books was the trickiest to write and why?
Again, definitely Hercules. Two types of authors. There's authors who called pantsers who just start a story and they just keep going on it. They start with the first line, they don't know where it's going, they write, and the story comes out from that. Or there's people who are called plotters, and they plot everything meticulously. And that's what I was like for my first two books. I plotted everything meticulously. With Hercules, I thought, I'm just going to start writing, see where the story goes. And I just found that impossible. I need to have a clear endpoint. So Hercules, I experimented with being a pantser, flying by the seat of the pants, it's called for that. And it was such a hard experience.
So for book 2, do you think you're going to be a plotter again?
I plotted it. It's always plotted. It was meticulously locked in before we started writing.
Excellent. Then we have a nice question here on my list. If I could just find it again. We have a question from a home educator who asks, is it Heracles or Hercules?
Well, you know what? First person to pull up on that point. Someone else did. A kid from year 5 in my son's school pulled up about it when I told him about it. Yes, technically, because I'm using Greek names, it should be Heracles. But Hercules is the one with name power. Everyone knows the name Hercules. So yes, correct. Technically, should be Heracles. Heracles is the Greek name. Hercules is the Roman name. I use Greek names all through this, but not for Hercules. So that's a discrepancy.
I never knew that was the difference between the two.
Yeah.
We have a nice question from Maya at the Robert Kett School who says, what is your favourite line from the book?
Oh, I don't know. No one's ever asked me that, but I think it's probably this page here. They're trying to catch the pond monster. And they've got a cage. Daphne, the cat's Mr. Garris's cat cage. And they were going to use it to throw into the pond, and they're going to put bait in it, hoping that the pond monster will take the bait. So Hattie cries, "We need bait!" And then she says, "Nathew," as it, and then Hercules thinks that they're going to use Nathew, which is his little friend that he's made, as bait, and Hercules thinks it's a great idea. I think it's probably that line. I just love. Also, I think I love Natthew's little face in that as well.
He's so happy.
So happy to be the bait. They don't use him as the bait; they use a curly whirly part in the end.
A much safer form of bait. And then we've had some more questions just asking who's your favourite character in the book?
So I mean, Hercules has been in my head for 10 years in different forms, not as Hercules, but as a boy who had all those massive levels of self-confidence, but utter lack of self-perception. So he's been there. So to get him out on page and to be as great as he is, I think is amazing. I also love Nathew, who's a little friend that is desperate to be Hercules' his friend, but Hercules just thinks is nowhere near the kind of cool enough to be friends with him. But Natthew's just a great guy, and he chips away at Hercules, follows him around, keeps trying to be his friend, is only ever nice, and in the end, the two sort of end up friends. He's the one friend. Hercules starts off wanting to make millions of friends. In the end, he goes for quality over quantity, and he has Matthew as one friend.
Excellent. I do have to ask, where did the name Matthew come from?
So Hercules thinks this is another slight negging of Matthew. He introduces himself as Matthew because it's Hercules' diary. You see it all through his POV. Hercules thinks he says Matthew, and he keeps saying that's a weird name. Why are you called Matthew? And he calls him Matthew, even though he's actually called Matthew. Again, slight trolling, but on Hercules' part.
Excellent. Darren Smith from Middlefield asks, if you weren't an author, what do you think your job would be?
So I'm not always an author. I also work in television. I make documentaries, and I'm also a journalist. I write about food for lots of magazines. If I didn't do any of that, I think I would love to be a carpenter. So I love making stuff. I love woodwork. It's a bit like writing a book. You make a plan beforehand when you're going to make, say, a shed. You make a plan beforehand. You map it all out. You know what you're going to do. You start building it. But as you go along, you've got to problem solve and fix things, and the plans change. And so, it's very much like writing. And at the end of it, you get something that you're really, really proud of. So I think, if I didn't do any of that, I'd be a carpenter.
Excellent. We've got time for a couple more. So we have a question from Kathleen Nora Bristol, who asks, I enjoy writing stories. Do you have any advice to help me make my stories come to life?
Wow, to make your stories come to life. I think character change is the biggest one. To make a really good story, you've got to start a character in one place and you've got to finish them in another place. So I always ask about my characters, what do they want and what do they need? The thing they want at the start is like Hercules wanting millions of new friends, but actually it's not what they need. What they need is just one or two quality friends in their life. And that changes what happens across the book. So the start is what they want, the end is what they need, and that's a great way of just starting out and structuring a whole story.
Excellent. And then we've had, I think we time to just one more question. We've had quite a few questions about the second Hercules book and what we can expect from it.
So the second Hercules book is just going to be so much fun. I've handed it in about last week. It's the chance to, I introduced some of the Greek gods here. I set up a world where us mortals and the Greek gods still exist in our world. And then the second book, I just have so much fun with it. So Hercules, Hattie, Pav, Matthew all go on a school trip to Greece where they get in tons and tons of trouble, and they end up having to break into Mount Olympus itself. And there's more Greek gods, there's more myth, I just thrown the whole book at it.
Excellent. So I think that is all we have time for now. So all that's left for me to say is thank you so much, Tom, for such a fascinating morning.
You guys.
I think we've all learned a lot about the pesky Greek gods. A reminder to everyone that the session has been recorded, so if you want to revisit any of it, you can. You'll be emailed a link in a couple of days. You can buy the book Hercules at all good Waterstones and other bookshops as well. It's a cracking read, so we'd highly recommend. And yeah, thank you so much, Tom, and everyone else. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you, guys. Bye.